Hello, everybody.
Greetings.
Fantastic to see you. Fantastic.
Welcome.
We are here Tuesday, the 11th of October, and we're going to be interviewing Alan Bashforth, who is the one of the co-founders of Lucillin. He's agreed to give us some time today to dive deep into his product and antibiotics and antibiosis and where we stand with all of that stuff. Guys, have you come across Lucillin at all?
I haven't. The first time I came across, actually, I've heard of it around the edges because I actually haven't done a whole lot of research into this. Normally, I want to be terribly prepared for everything, and this time I thought I had a quick glance at the website, and I reminded myself when I saw the packaging. I said, I know that product, I know the idea of it, and I heard people talking about it. But in the last 2 years, the name has come up a lot. Yeah, I know that label anywhere, and the nice, cool blue purple bottle.
Yeah.
So I know people like it, and when we mentioned this was on, my page lights up. Love Lucillin, couldn't live without it. Everybody's using it. We're going to say Lucillin a lot, guys. This is not a sponsored kind of show. This guy was invited on. Alan was invited on because we want to chat to him. We want to talk about infection control from the kind of natural antibacterial side, and Alan is going to know more about that than most people. So he's been invited on. So that, you know, if his brand gets mentioned 1,000 times, it's got nothing to do with anything but our own interest. So people like. What about you, Bren? You use that in clinic?
Yeah, we have used it. We've used it for cleaning down door handles and everything else through COVID. We've done everything for just using it for wiping tabletops, cleaning wounds from horses all the way through to little tiny critters. So lots of good things. We're going to talk about that later on. Guys, if you want more information as well, please do join us on patreon.com/RawPetMedics. There's another bit on the side afterwards for you guys to enjoy. Thank you to all of those supporters of the Patreon site. It's brilliant, and it enables us to do what we are doing tonight without needing sponsorship from individual companies. It allows us to choose discerningly the companies we want to bring on. So that's that, guys. I just think we should crack on. I think what we should really do is introduce Alan, and Nick, I think I'm going to leave that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan Bashforth, co-father of Lucillin. Welcome. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for allowing me to talk to you guys on this thing.
That's amazing. Great. It's really great that you're here. Just a little bit of background. I've been using Lucillin for a number of years, and I'm really, really pleased with it. This is the product. I always say to people, it's related distantly. Can you see that, everybody?
Right.
See it?
Yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah.
Alan's used to doing this. He's holding it in the camera.
Yeah, but if you get the shine. Anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah.
And my party piece, because I don't like using anything that damages tissue. So my party piece is, I say this is related to domestos, but you can do that with it because it's that safe with tissue. It's not going to kill any tissue. Don't try that with domestos, guys. It is related.
We should outline what it is.
Alan, it is related to domestos, but it isn't domestos. It's what the body uses. Can you tell us what it is and what it does, please?
Okay. Well, Lucillin is a synthesized version of a naturally occurring chlorine, which your body, the mammalian body, actually manufactures. Your leukocyte, your white blood cell, actually makes this particular chlorine. It is a unique chlorine. And the fact that its pH is the same as us. And as Nick quite rightly says, it's non-toxic. And you did your party piece, so I'll do mine. So now I'm just very wet.
Yeah, he's 140, everybody. Doesn't he look amazing?
We're not going to start going on about moist. I think what we need to know is we just need to know. So I've also had people say that they've used it around the eyes on wounds and stuff because it's really safe, even if it goes into the eye. Is that right, Alan?
That's correct. Yes, it is. We actually do a little dropper version of it, which I don't have. I should do have with me tonight, which is this little guy, and that is a dropper, as you can see. that is the same product. There is no difference in the liquid that's actually in it, whether you have this one or this guy or the one that Nick's holding. But the applicator is what it's about, and that's for ears, eyes, small openings, small wounds, or small animals. You wouldn't necessarily want a half a litre if you're just dealing with a hamster. It's not about drowning the thing.
Or
So
small boys. Alan, I've got a lovely story. Arthur has got a little bit of impetigo on his chin just here, and I sent him to school with some Lucillin, and the teachers, the school took one look at it, and I got a phone call from his teacher saying, "I'm sure this is safe," and I said, "I can absolutely guarantee you this is safe as houses, because otherwise he wouldn't have it in his little hand." And he says we can't prescribe it we can't use it at school because it doesn't have written instructions for humans. So are you going to come out with a human version at some point? Is that a plan?
We actually already have done. It's called Lucillin Family Sanitizer. It is available. It's actually certified for sale by HSE, the Health and Safety Executive, which is the UK organisation now that controls the UK's biocides. It used to be handled by the European Biocide Directive in Europe, but now it's all been handed over to the HSE. So HSE is the governing body that rules what we do in the UK, and HSE have approved it for human use.
Fabulous. Okay, I'm going to get some. I'll get some of that then. So, so tell us therefore about how the more unusual uses. Sorry, guys, I'm hogging the questions here. I will shut up after this one. What are the more unusual uses? Maybe you were talking about how it's used with sweet itch in horses. Sweet itch being an allergy to culicoides, midgy mites on horses.
Well, that's an interesting one, actually, Nick, because it's not an insecticide. It doesn't actually kill an insect. However, what it does do, as you're probably well aware, that most insects, like flies or fleas or the little mites which cause sweet itch, the way they feed, they will bite you, and then they regurgitate their previous meal into the bite, and that starts the digestive process. They suck up then the meal, which is basically you and the bacteria. If you actually douse that with Lucillin, it kills the bacteria in their meal and eventually, effectively, starves them because they now can't digest what they've actually bitten. Because you've killed off the bacteria, which is their digestive mechanism. So effectively, they will either starve or they'll move away.
Love it. And
This
so
is what I wanted to introduce to you guys, because when Alan said that to me, I just the thought processes in my mind went off crazily. I mean, it is a nice antibacterial, and you know, guys who are watching, you can use it or you can't use it. It's up to you completely. But it just doesn't damage tissue. But this takes the whole use into another level. You are actually modifying microbiome of insects on the skin of the horse, and I'm wondering whether there are other applications in a similar way.
What about so analogy to a flea bite is often an analogy to the flea dirt, isn't that right, lads? And surely it's not just the dirt, but the baddies inside it. Does it have any application there?
Absolutely, it does. There again, it's not going to kill the flea, but it will make the environment uncomfortable for them. But it will actually kill off the bacteria, which is what's causing the irritation. When the flea bites you, it's not so much the bite that is causing the irritation; it's what it leaves behind. It's the bacterial infection, which is what Lucillin will do. It will kill off that, and you can actually prove it to yourself if you. We've all got animals. You've got animals. If you notice, sometimes when you get a dog that scratches you, you get that wheal that comes up on your arm, that sort of red raised part of your skin. If you douse that with a Lucillin, you can almost watch the redness and the swelling go down as your body reacts now to the fact that it no longer needs to deal with that invading pathogen.
Wow.
So you can actually watch that happen.
Alan, you said, okay, just to backtrack, you said that this is a very natural product that our body produces it. Okay, so can you tell us a bit about that? You were saying something to do with the macrophages produce this. Could you explain to the people what that is? It's not like you're farming all these macrophages and squishing them like olives to get this extract out. Like, what is the process? You know, how did you do it?
Well, if I told you how we did it, I'd have to kill you.
Oh, that's how it's going to be reached.
Oh, go on.
It is a synthetic version. Okay, so there are many ways of making hypochlorous acid, and the typical one is through an electrolysis process. There are other ones which are through a chemical process. Ours is more unique. Well, it is unique in the way we do it. It allows us, our methodology allows us to make it in vast quantities, and it also allows us to adjust the strength of the free available chlorine, because that's the key to all of this, is what's called the FAC, the free available chlorine. But it allows us to control how much free available chlorine there is in the product, but more importantly, it allows us to maintain the pH factor. Now, HOCl has a very narrow window of pH where it's really, really effective. You go outside of that and the efficacy drops off. Also, if you drop below 4 pH, you're starting now to go into chlorine. If you go above 7.5, 8, you're now into hypochlorite. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to focus on the pH where hypochlorous acid is most effective, and that, believe it or not, is the same as our skin, 5.5. And our methodology allows us to manage the pH so tight and so precise that we can produce it in vast volumes at the most effective pH, 5.5.
Cool. Okay. And then
the lucillin is hypochlorous acid, hypochlorous, whereas bleach is hypochlorite, and you don't want to get those mixed up, guys. Hypochlorous acid. Okay, and it was discovered a long time ago, Alan. You were saying before you came on.
Yeah, it was actually identified by Michael Faraday and John Davy, way
1800s.
Yeah, and it was actually used in the battlefields on the First World War.
Ooh,
good grief! How did they use that? How did they use it there?
Well, they used it exactly as a wound sanitizer. But there again, their product.
But how did they stabilize it?
They didn't. That's the problem. They didn't stabilize it. It had to make it and use it within an hour or two.
Okay.
See,
and so
that's really where what we've done with lucillin is to create the product which has a very tight pH, really focused on that most effective band, and has a 2-year shelf life in the bottle.
That's cool. I like it. And there's a number of questions coming down the side here, and one of them says, "Will this replace the colloidal silver in my press? Seen as colloidal silver is the brand. Where does it sit alongside products like colloidal silver?"
Colloidal silver does do a similar job. It's not as effective. It does have other slight side effects to it, which lucillin doesn't. But efficacy-wise, your colloidal silver is probably, what, about a log 4? Lucillin is a log 7.
Okay.
We all know. You want me to explain logs to you?
Not really. It sounds impressive, though.
It's got a lot more activity. It's got a lot more active molecule in it. Is that correct?
Well, basically what it is, we all see the adverts for Domestos and Parazone and things like that, and it says 99.9% effective. That's 3 nines, 99.9. That's log 3. Okay? Lucillin is log 7, so it's 99.99999% effective. So it's 10,000 times better at killing bacteria than Domestos.
Wowzers. That's quite a claim.
Wow. And much quicker as well, Alan. One of the
It
things
is
you were
also-
saying was it kills within nanoseconds. Is that right?
It's almost instantaneous. It depends on exactly what pathogen you are attempting. It's slightly slower on things like things like a fungus. Viruses, it's instantaneous. Most bacteria are instantaneous. There are some which it can take up to a minute.
And yeast?
Okay.
What about yeasty ears? Surely
Yeah,
not
but there
yeast.
again, yeast is a fungus. So yeah, it will kill that. Pseudomonas or something
What?
like that. Yeah, it
No
will kill
way.
yeast. It
Ooh.
will even kill ringworm.
Ooh.
Yeah,
this
I've
is
even
interesting.
used this as for those Pseudomonas infections that get into eye ulcers and things like that. I've actually used it for those because those are really notoriously antimicrobial resistant. So it can be a really useful way to speed up the antimicrobials in there. But I just this therefore sort of then begs the question. This is such an effective biocide of killing bacteria and yeasts and viruses. Where do we draw the line of impact on what we would consider the friendlies on the skin, the friendlies in the gut? Because obviously there was an article about colloidal silver having some downsides for people that were using it in mouths of dogs, that it was possibly going to be ingested and start to upset their gut microbiome. Where are we at with hypochlorous acid?
Hypochlorous acid, actually, again, it's very broad spectrum. It doesn't differentiate between good and bad. The thing about hypochlorous acid is it doesn't hang around. It neutralizes itself incredibly rapidly. In actual fact, if you were to spill some out in the street, within an hour or so, there's nothing left but saline solution.
And on the skin, Alan, how long does it last?
There again, depending on what environment you're in, it's very susceptible to UV light. Ultraviolet light will actually kill the product too, which is why we make special bottles for it.
Yeah. Hence the purple bottle.
Hence the colour.
That's right. There's actually a UV blocker in the bottle as well, in the plastic. We actually have these bottles made for us, especially there's a UV blocker actually in the plastic. So it's not just because it's purple. We like purple. As you see, everything's purple. But there's also a UV blocker because this it is naturally unstable. So that's really what we have to concentrate on, is making the product stable. When you put it in the dog's mouth, there again, you must focus on the area you are trying to kill off, the area of pathogen you're trying to kill off. But the saliva and the dog's own mucus and everything else will kill off the Lucillin quite rapidly. So it doesn't hang around. It's not one of those products which sits, you could put on the skin and it's effective for 24 hours. That's not what it's about. It immediately kills a pathogen and moves on.
Okay, it's for cleaning.
So Alan, Brent,
very quickly, just Fiona's just said here. So therefore, if it goes past the shelf life, because I know that arbitrarily they always say put a 2-year shelf life on just about everything out there that's complementary. So if it goes past that, Fiona's asked, does that mean it just becomes less effective, or does it ever become harmful?
No, it becomes less effective. If I've got, we keep an archive of every batch we make. And we've been doing it now for 11 years, so I've got quite a large archive. And I can go back 7 or 8 years and still find product that's very active. It's not as active as it was by a long shot, but it's still active. But if it's out of date, what it does is it loses efficacy, and what you end up with is a bottle of saline.
Okay.
So at least it's not going to harm anybody.
No.
Yes, Susie Greaves here. Susie, she says, I have a rabbit with respiratory issues. Viral, we are thinking, along with our vet, would this be able to be used in a nebulizer? So therefore, internally. And it comes back to the initial question there. Can you use this product internally? What of the effect internally? Where are we with that? Nebulizer, inhaling it.
I've heard it being used in Pasteurella cases as well for nebulizing when they've had Pasteurella infection, respiratory infections. So that sort of leads into that same thing.
It's a difficult one, actually, Brendan. You can, yes, it's been used in nebulizers. We've actually done some work with horses in their nebulizer on it. It's also been used in foggers to damp down COVID, for instance. The Japanese use it extensively for that purpose. From a regulatory standpoint, though, the UK is well behind on allowing you the use of it. And it's purely a regulatory stand. It's not an efficacy stand. We know it works. We know it's not harmful. But from a regulatory standpoint, the UK has not approved it.
I'm not surprised. And where do you think your product stands in relation to alcohol gels and that sort of washing?
We outperform alcohol gels and without the downside.
Yes. Interesting.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And so,
Michelle,
there was a couple of questions about America as well. Are you asking that, Nick?
No, I wasn't. I was just going to jump in with regard to dental. She says, is it effective for as a dental rinse for dogs?
It's actually used in America, and to a certain extent, the electrolysis version is actually used by the dental practices in the UK for humans, as well as dogs.
Good. That was my next question, because I had a root canal done recently, and I was, as much as one can talk when you're having a root canal, I was talking to the dentist about what they use, and I think they just use good old-fashioned bleach. And I was thinking, that's a little bit behind the time, somewhat toxic. Why don't they use hypochlorous acid and
a lot of them do, actually, Nick. A lot of them do, but what they do is they have specialist machines which manufacture it on site.
Okay.
There again, because of its lack of stability.
Yeah, but they must cost a fortune, whereas they can just buy a bottle of this stuff and it would last them for a month.
They do. They do cost a fortune. They do cost a fortune, and they also cost a lot in maintenance as well.
There was a piece there a while ago on mouthwashes, and mouthwash is coming in for a bit of flack because we have this flora in our mouth that's really important, most of it, and then you have a couple of baddies, causing mischief, as you always do. And so the idea of washing out and killing all bacteria in our mouth is kind of a little bit came into question there in the last year or so. It comes back to the same question. If I was to mouthwash with Lucillin, am I just clearing all life from my mouth and starting again? Because in the belief that I'm trying to fight, let's say I've got a gum infection of some sort of gingivitis, and rinsing to try and help this is a good idea at a slight cost of killing all life in my mouth because it's so broad spectrum. Do you know what I mean? Kind of the same with the gut question, really.
Generally, I'd say yes, it's a good idea. I use it personally for those things. If I've got a cough or a sore throat, I will actually gargle with it or spray it in the back of my throat just to kill off maybe a staph infection or something like that. That's a good
idea.
And it works incredibly well for that. Yes, it's a broad spectrum, so yes, it will kill off good bacteria as well as the bad, but your good bacteria does recolonize very rapidly.
Oh, yeah. I had strep throat last month, 2-3 months ago. Oh, man, it was so bad. And I haven't had it since I was a kid, and I was very, very uncomfortable, and I would have gargled bloody Domestos if I had it in my hand. My throat was so sore. Yeah.
Next time you get some, just give it a good spray in the back of your throat. It doesn't taste very nice. I'll give you that. Okay.
Okay. Fair play.
But
it's pretty neutral.
It certainly works.
Cool. I'm going to get.
My thought would be Peter McCulloch, the cardiologist who was at the forefront of looking at primary treatment of COVID, not just going home and waiting to turn blue. He was saying we should treat this from day one when you get COVID, and his big thing was doing nasal flushes with a dilute povidone iodine solution. And I'm thinking, that's a hassle. It's potentially going to sting and what have you. Whereas if you've got this in some fashion, and you can just do a rinse. Apparently in Uttar Pradesh, there's a state.
Uttar
Forgive
Pradesh.
me,
Uttar Pradesh.
Uttar Pradesh.
Yeah.
They completely knocked COVID on the head, and one of the things that they did, they were using antimicrobial, antiviral nasal washes. So I would have thought that would be the bee's knees.
Well,
For
the
that.
Japanese do
Because
actually
it's
do that.
thing-
The Japanese do it as well, and the Japanese actually have.
Oh,
don't freeze. Don't freeze.
Oh, there we go. It's just, I wondered what the noise was, and now I know it's the computer being wound up by a little.
Yeah. Oh, he just came back,
Yeah.
and he's going to come back in again. I'm finding this very, very
really interesting, isn't it? I mean, we've got some questions popping up, and we need to ask these guys because there's loads of questions coming in.
I think I can answer
why does
that
it come
one,
in
boys.
so many different? Yeah, why does it keep coming into so many different bottles if it's all the same stuff? And I think that's just about application.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's just if you've got a horse and you buy a tiny little bottle like this, it'll last you 3 days. If you've got a horse and you buy something like that, it'll last you a decent length of time. That's it. It's just practicality because it will
Yeah,
kind
you've
of go
got
off in time.
you've got
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a little hamster and you have a massive spray bottle, and it's like in his face. He's not going to appreciate that the second time round. There's a Debbie Williams. I love purple too. Good stuff, Debbie. Thanks for that. And then underneath that is Debbie Glasgow. What about the bird flu? How could we use this to help with biosecurity with poultry? That's a cracker of a question.
Fogging.
Well, that's
Fogging. Poultry houses.
Yeah.
Can you gas poultry houses? Can you just like you do with these?
You fog. Those machines that look like some leaf blower, but they're going around with the fog that comes out of them. That's effectively what you're doing, is creating a particulate fog with the hypochlorous acid in. But it's very quickly it dissipates, as he was saying. So that's the beauty of it, is this lack of long-lasting impact on environmental bacteria and microbiome that's going on. So
I've got another idea. Here's my idea. Right, you know the way the meat chain is filthy, okay, and all our salmonella and E. coli comes from the inside of these animals. And our big problem is then with the way we eviscerate the animal, we don't take care, particularly with poultry, because it's an automatic suction out of the guts. And you break it out the mouth and anus, and you spray some of the stomach and food gut contents back into the cavity. And that's where our salmonella E. coli comes from, splashing into this. They're all use the same dunking bath to kill them. Okay, why don't we feed lucillin to all the cattle and pigs and birds before they die, and then just completely wipe out all the bacteria in their bodies, and then we slaughter them? I know this sounds very, very controversial, guys.
Can we not just use the lucillin in the processing plant rather than actually trying to throttle them with?
It has to go through the animal, and if the animal's not alive, how's it going to go through?
I think it's going to get absorbed by fomites and crap, and
it will be taken out by the stomach. As soon as it's passed through the stomach, the pH has changed, therefore you've taken the product away. And what's more is this not where chlorinated chickens come from? That idea.
Yeah, it's not chlorine though. It's a type of chlorine, but it's not. It's
a good
chlorine.
Chlorinated chickens. That's bleach, essentially, isn't it? That's another name for bleach.
Yeah,
and this is not bleach. Here's Alan back again. Hey,
Alan, we've got a great question here, Alan. Debbie Glasgow asks, what about the bird flu? How could we use this to help with biosecurity of our poultry?
First of all, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Good as before.
It's an interesting one. We could look at, and actually I have looked at using a fogger within the birdhouses. That seems to be a way of actually reducing the potential for it. There again, it's not something that you can easily administer. It's there are ways and means of putting it into the water that the chickens or the birds would actually drink, which will help. But the best way that we assume at the moment is probably to fog the chicken house, or to reduce the potential for it within the atmosphere that the birds live in.
I've seen people walking through birdhouses with foggers,
Yes.
because then you get it down at the level of the beak of the bird. You get, I don't know, these sheds are just enormous, but you get 4 guys walk through slowly,
Exactly.
giving this kind of smoky effect, which will then dissipate very quickly because it's going to hit sawdust and crap and what have you.
Exactly.
I'd have thought that's a fairly ideal situation. Because
Exactly.
all the good guys in the gut will just persist.
Yeah, exactly. You could use these portable foggers, or you can actually put a fogger within the birdhouse itself. You can put lucillin into one of those foggers. That's not a problem. You could apply it that way. It's not a difficult thing to do, but yes, that would work.
Of course, from a regenerative point of view, the ideal would be to not have to use an antibacterial of any description, because your chickens were A, so happy, B, were the stocking density was low, C, had good access to bugs and what have you. That's, but we are where we are. So I think lucillin in the real world does have an application, and I look forward to the day many years from now when we don't have to use it. We just use it I use it on my kids' knees, literally. This stuff on my kids' knees, and a conjunctivitis. Sasha was saying it's great with conjunctivitis. It's a supremely useful thing.
That's amazing. What about Angela Fieldhouse? Could it help with psoriasis?
It does help with psoriasis and also eczema, but it won't cure psoriasis. It won't cure eczema. But what it will do, it'll help you manage it. One of the biggest problems that I have friends of mine who actually has eczema, that the skin dries and cracks, and then it gets infected, and then it really starts to become irritated and sore. At that point, that's where lucillin can really help out a great deal. It will stop it getting infected. If it does get infected, it will kill off the infectant, and then actually it will settle down. So it's not a cure, but it will help you manage it.
Excellent. So just as we're entering our final furlong of the show here, Alan, I just wanted to say, what do you think about the idea of using lucillin to kill all the good guys and the bad guys, and then coming in with a probiotic? Because we've got a lovely guy, Joe Flanagan, coming in next week to talk to us about the use of probiotics. And he's coming at managing bacteria, which is essentially what you're doing, but from the other perspective. He's saying blast out, get bad guys with the good guys. And so just your thoughts on that.
I think it's a very interesting idea. I think it's probably an idea that's well worth exploring. Lucillin is a very broad spectrum. It doesn't really care what bacteria it's dealing with. Some bacteria is more resistant to lucillin than others, so there is that. But when you are looking at a probiotic to rebuild the flora, probiotics don't necessarily build all the flora. They are more selective. So I think that whole argument is worthy of discussion. I think it probably needs a little bit more thought process to look at the good bacteria, what are the good flora, what is it you're trying to actually rebuild, and not just throw a probiotic at it.
There's a number of sorry, Brian, just before there's a number of people asking where do we buy this, just before Brian's question. Where do you want people to go here, Alan? There's a lot of people looking for it, and they're worried they won't be able to buy it now due to our phenomenal readership.
It's available in a wide variety of places. If you're looking for the animals, Pets at Home stock it. Every branch of Pets at Home has it on the health and hygiene aisle.
Nice.
If you go to Amazon, you'll find it on Amazon. You'll find it on Amazon UK, Amazon Germany, Amazon America. You'll find it in a lot of those different places. Most good pet stores will store it or stock it. If they don't have it, then they will deal with one of the wholesalers that we deal with. People like the big ones, the Pets at Home, the Pedigrees, the Vitals, the Trust Pets of this world, if they buy from any of those. So even a good pet shop will, if they haven't got it in stock, they should be able to get it for you.
Cool.
It's available on Amazon. It's available on Fair. And
everywhere has it.
Fiona rightly says your local independent pet store. I think that's fantastic to support these guys. You know, Pets at Home, it's all very well. You know, they're great. And what have
there you go, Lorraine.
Your local person.
I said if your local pets, we've got, actually, if you go onto the Lucillin website, go to the Where to Buy button, put in your postcode, and it'll give you an array of pet shops that are within a mile or two of you where you're living.
Yeah, sounds good. Alan Clary there is a follower of ours for a while. Bubbles Pet Care. He's got a small pet shop. There you go. There's a small independent. If you're looking for a website that sells it, Bubbles Pet Care. What were you going to say, Brad? Sorry,
so there was a couple of things that we sort of raised whilst you took a break for a couple of minutes.
Sorry.
One was about no, absolutely fine. Gave us a chance to have a chat. So one was just about the implications in the food industry. So there's all sorts of people getting worried about their raw, and let's face it, that's what we generally are talking about week on week. And they're talking about the bacteria that may be getting into their food, and they're sort of trying to find a kill step that's not going to adjust the food unnecessarily. And we wanted to differentiate this from the chlorinated chicken stories that we get out of the US, and at the same time also differentiate, could companies end up using this in a food product with it then changing back to a saline effectively as it's inactivated, or would it just not get the distribution through the food?
Wow, great question.
I think to be honest with you, I think your last point there, Brenna, is more correct, that I don't think it would actually work its way through the food. I think that if you wanted to use it on a chicken breast or something like that, absolutely, you could do that. But to do it as part of the food chain, I don't think that would work within the raw environment. Hypochlorous acid is used in the US to spray fresh fruit and vegetables in the store. Safeway supermarkets actually have foggers in the store where they literally spray the fresh fruit and veg with it.
Ooh, interesting.
Cool.
Is that what those foggers are? Are they? Because I just thought they were a cool way of making your fruit and veg aisle look super chilled and everything else. But actually, it's hypochlorous acid.
A little experiment you can all do if you want to see what hypochlorous acid does to food. If you get 2 apples, take a bite out of each of them, spray one with Lucillin, and leave the other one untouched. Put them on the side of the counter and see how quickly they rot.
Love it.
Nice. I'm going to do that for sure.
Love it.
What about Alan? What about hospitals? I know the guy that's coming on next week, Joe. He shared a couple of studies there of 2 Italian hospitals, and apparently one in England starting soon. And they're now using probiotic cleaners to clean the environment because they're quite effective, given a bit of time. They are very effective at keeping down hospital infections, antibiotic-resistant infections that everybody's very concerned about, the 6 in particular. And so these probiotic washes were great. Is there any future in a product like Lucillin or hypochlorous acid being used as a cleaner in the home, cleaner in hospitals? Can you produce us a concentrated version that we can dilute in our mop bucket, that kind of thing?
No. Yes, there is an application for it, and yes, we are working with a couple of hospitals on various applications of it. Can't go too much into that at the moment, but it's hypochlorous acid is, as I said, is inherently unstable, and it's expensive. If you're going to use it as a hard surface sanitizer, there are other alternatives which are a lot cheaper. You can't just dilute it. Okay, even if we made it a lot stronger, and you use tap water, you'll kill it.
Okay, interesting.
Okay, because as I said, because the nature of the hypochlorous acid molecule, it attaches itself. It will attach itself to minerals in water. So if you've got a high level of turbidity or a high level of minerals in your water, that will effectively dilute the hypochlorous acid to a point where it's very little use. So it's like when we sell 5-litre bottles of Lucillin as well for commercial use, and we always say that yes, you can decant it, but decant it into a Lucillin bottle. Don't put it into anything else. Don't mix it with anything else, and don't dilute it. But you will damage the product.
Yeah, interesting. God, this sounds good.
So useful for handles and small areas that you just want to kill what somebody else has slathered on or put on, but don't use it as a main thing. So when we're talking about biosecurity, because loads of people get panicked about parvovirus, for instance, here, and what we're saying here is that therefore it's probably not so good as a foot bath or a large sort of cleaning out the kennel to try and reduce parvo. Is that what you're saying? Because it's not a good hard cleaner?
If you try and use things like hypochlorous acid to clean out a kennel, you're going to use a lot of it, and it's going to be very expensive, and you probably won't get any better results for it. If you're going to use it in a situation where you don't want to have a nasty chemical, you don't want to have a domestos or something that is toxic, that's where hypochlorous acid fits. It doesn't fit in the cleaning the crap out of the kennel.
So when that guy comes to you to purchase a puppy, is wearing his really expensive Nike trainers, and you want to spray them off with something so it doesn't bring parvovirus into your puppies,
Perfect.
You can safely use Lucillin.
Nice.
You can do, yeah.
Nice.
You could use Lucillin on that. But I said, where...
We've missed out, boys. I could have got a Nike sponsorship for that. Anyway.
Where Lucillin is best focused is what we refer to as on-animal, on-person applications. It is a skin disinfectant. It is a skin sanitizer. In all aspects of that. That's where it fits, and that's where it fits best. It's an expensive product to use just to wipe down a table. Yes, you can do it, and yes, it works, but it's an expensive product to do that. I think.
Amazing. Alan, last minute, anything that you'd want to say? Any places that we can reach you? Have you got any world tours to share? Any final words?
There you go. Paul has just come on there. I just said she uses it to wipe down the beards after.
That's a good shout. That good idea.
That is a very useful, a very good idea. Those things. Just a quick point. National therapy dogs. They use Lucillin as a skin and coat sanitizer between visits to vulnerable people. That's the sort of application you can't use things like alcohol for. You can't use things like domestos for, because you are applying it to the animal, and that so that's why they use Lucillin.
Awesome, that's really good.
So on the animal is where it really fits best as an application, and that's why, as I think somebody actually. There you go, Doris. Same thing.
Spray my dogs after they've been pet by strangers. Oh my god! I can imagine petting somebody's dog and she runs up and she sprays her dogs afterwards. It's like, what's wrong with me?
Do you know, through COVID, we literally at the very beginning, it was a thing that we would spray if dogs had to come into the surgery from a COVID patient. So we knew that the owner had COVID. Then we were discussed spraying the dogs down with Lucillin just to reduce the risk of contamination to staff.
Amazing.
Yep. That was what it was used for extensively, actually. There were 4 police forces in the UK that did exactly that with it as well.
Wow.
Good time to be an antibacterial when something like COVID is almost like. You don't want to celebrate. Sorry, you shouldn't be celebrating. There's nothing to celebrate. Dan Keevy has asked about 3 times. Can you get it in Ireland? You can, Dan. I'm looking at 2 places here. Christie's, which is the groomer suppliers, and Equestrian World. No surprises. Monster online shop. equestrianworld.ie. But yeah, everywhere, every country has it. It's all over the place.
Well, can we just identify, just before you came on, Alan, you were talking about what was happening over the other side of the Atlantic There's a few questions being asked about North America. Is it available yet? Is it going to be available at some point? Where are we
Canada.
It is available in Canada. We have a distributor in Canada called Armadale. They have an array of stores in Canada, but we have also just shipped our first 2 pallets of product out to our new North American distributor, who's based in New York State.
Awesome. Nice one.
He will be developing the marketplace for us over the coming months, and I think he's planning on doing something on Amazon in the States with it as well.
You might need to get onto the shippers tomorrow and ship another 2 pallets judging by the people wanting to buy it.
As you can see, we ship it all over Europe. In fact, we've got 2 shipments going out today. We've got 1 into Holland, 1 into Germany. We ship to Spain. We ship to Finland, Sweden, Denmark. So there's quite a lot of places you can get it now.
Sounds good.
If anybody really has trouble, just pick up the phone and call us at the office. We love to talk to people. We're not one of these companies that hide behind the phone, or eBay.
And just to check that, is that your website as well? If people want to find out a bit more,
that's it. That's the one. That's the one.
Yeah, sounds good. Look, Alan, more power to the brilliant product. I'm definitely going to get some for the dog and kids. That just sounds brilliant. So
I heard somebody, just one thing, I heard somebody actually ask about if it's the same product, why all the different size bottles?
Yeah.
It's purely application.
Yeah.
It's purely application.
Yeah.
I think somebody said, if you don't want to buy half a litre if you've got a gerbil.
Right.
Yeah.
By the same token, a 60ml spray is not going to go far on a Ainhand horse.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. No, makes sense. Sounds good. All right, guys, we've got to go on to the bit on the side here. So next week we have Joe from Ingenious Probiotics, guys. 2 guests in a row. You lucky things. So that was a cracker. Alan, thanks very much for your time. Really, really appreciated that. Cracking product, Lucillin. I can't wait to give it a go, and the 2 boys stand over it, so that's good enough for me. So fantastic, well done on that business, and best of luck in the future. It looks like you're growing a phenomenal rate there, so that's brilliant. Good news for you. Well done.
If anybody needs any help, or you've got if you're in a salon or something like that and you need the data sheets, the cost sheets, they're all available on the internet. We can send them out to you, all those sort of things.
Cool.
It's so just contact us. That's the easiest way to do it.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Cheers, Alan.
Alan,
thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Really appreciate it. All the best.
Take it easy, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, guys, we're gonna see you all in about an hour on Patreon for those Patreon viewers on the bit on the side. Hope you enjoyed tonight. As Connor said, we've got part 2, which is all about smothering with probiotics next week. With Luca and Joe. So we look forward to that and see you all then.
Marvelous.
See you later.